Hey everyone, this is Said with Messy Growth. So today's guest is someone who doesn't just do marketing, she builds growth engines. I got Kas Szatylowicz with me. She's a fractional head of marketing, go-to-market advisor, and one of those rare operators who combines deep product thinking with real revenue accountability. She's been the first marketing hire at multiple different growing startups, scaled organic traffic, led growth at AI and cyber security companies like Lakera and V7. And she's helped bring 33% of Fortune 100 companies into an inbound funnel, something I want to dig deeper into, all with lean teams and zero fluff. She's built and led growth teams across seed and Series A companies, coordinated funding announcements featured in TechCrunch, and she's known for one thing above all, no BS, revenue-focused marketing. Well, what makes her really special is interesting, not just about the results, of course, it's the mindset, so to speak. She brings an engineering approach to marketing, thinking in systems instead of she understands product-led growth very deeply and operates inside an AI-first companies where distribution really is the real moat. So today we're going to talk about and dig deeper into what actually drives growth in early-stage startups, why most go-to-market strategies fail, how to think about distribution in an era-filled era, and what founders get wrong about market. Cassie, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. You really make me sound more impressive than I actually am. Very happy to be here.
No, your experience is extensive, expansive, and I really want to dig deeper into. And I'm glad that we finally were able to get this on our schedules because I know a lot of travel. We got Christmas in between, so I really, really appreciate having you on. Thank you.
Very happy. Okay, let's do it.
Great. So my first question is, you've been headhunted for every role since 2018. Is there something that you think companies see in you that most growth marketers don't actually signal?
Yeah, so I think the main thing is actually my presence on LinkedIn and kind of building this personal brand from very early on.
Mm.
So before the whole AI slop, I don't really know what made me actually share everything that I was working on LinkedIn, but I really was focusing quite a lot on that. And the important part there is not just kind of sharing, okay, this is what I'm doing, but actually sharing what am I doing, how am I doing it, and really trying to be very sort of actionable and helpful to people.
Yeah.
And then the other thing, because as you said, I've been headhunted, but it's not really the usual way. Like it's not just about the recruiters. Usually all the offers that are coming through VCs. And I think
Wow.
yeah, so they just kind of reaching out like, hey, I have this portfolio company. Like, do you want to do a little bit of fractional for my portfolio company? And I think the reason this is happening is because I was always trying to make the founders I was working with look great in front of their boards. So kind of trying to really bring those results very early on. And then secondly, also just really networking. Well, yeah, I would say these are kind of the two ingredients.
Yeah, I mean, you're being modest, right? I've looked at your LinkedIn. I've seen Elena Verna comment on your LinkedIn posts and everything. And it's not like, I mean, when you look at this, people of that stature that have a huge following and they're engaging with your content, it's usually a sign that you're doing something right in social media, the way you're engaging, the way you're commenting. Is there a specific strategy and kind of like ties into the world that we live in today? I kind of feel like that you can work for company X, but you got to have your personal brand. Do you feel that that is very important, or you feel like that, hey, if you're a good product manager or a good marketer, just do good at your job and that's it. You don't have to look beyond the lens and scope of your work.
No, I think sharing, but it's again very important how you're sharing it and obviously what you're sharing. And of course, I mean, also, engaging with people on LinkedIn has been very important. Personally, I don't really have any strategy. I just try to make things as actionable as possible. And I also share a lot of the failures. So it's not just sharing, hey, this is this result and I've been working on it for the last 6 months, but actually sharing the things that I'm currently working on, not knowing if they're working or not working, and also getting the input from people. And here, actually, one of my heroes is Emilia Kroczyńska, who's also Polish, by the way, that I'm sure you know her as well. I think she's been this one person and one idol for how to build personal brand on LinkedIn.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that brands nowadays, especially your personal brand, it's something interesting that I was talking about it. You carry it with you from job to job, so to speak. So it doesn't reset. Whereas when you go to a job, it resets, so to speak, because you got to build the relationships again, got to prove your worth, so to speak, sing for your supper. Whereas with your brand, is just going to go ahead and carry it with you. I want to talk about something important that you just laid out, which is you get hired through, you network a lot, and the VCs will say, hey, can you go to company X, Y, and Z that we have invested in? And of course, do fractional work. You're often the first marketing hire. Is there, or what's the real psychological shift required when you walk into a company with zero structure, zero branding, zero marketing, so to speak?
Yeah. Yeah, I think I've been the founding marketer 3 or 4 times at this point. It's been really kind of my sweet spot for when I'm joining companies, and very often also joining as the only woman in a very, engineering heavy kind
Mm,
of tech guys environments, which is kind of crazy to
mm,
think about. And I think the most important thing is to be really curious. And this sounds super cheesy,
mm,
but this is honestly the most important sort of psychological shift that I had to do when I was starting out in V7, which was, the completely different field for me, computer vision. And before the whole AI kind of took off, I knew absolutely nothing. Like there were so many terms just thrown at me, so many acronyms, so many things that I just didn't understand.
mm.
And I think just staying really curious and kind of silly in this way, like being a little bit yeah, it just kind of like I felt like a stupidest person in the room. And I think that made me also ask a lot of the questions and really try to understand things on a very deep level so that I would be able to actually do my job. So I think curiosity is one kind of trait or sort of psychological shift. And then the other one is really testing things out and throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what's and really being able to kill your darlings. And I think this is something that marketers don't really do enough. Like people, invest in certain strategies and then they just kind of stick with it because they invested so much time or so many resources in this, but something is not working. And they are just doing it like they're killing it too late when it's like, they could have done something else in the meantime. So I think those two things, like really experimenting, really being curious, trying things out, and then killing things that don't work and moving on.
So I think like you would agree to the term when a lot of folks in the tech world say fail fast and fail forward, so to speak, or just fall forward. Is that accurate? I mean, if something's not working, just kill it and move on to the next one and the one after that.
Yeah, I would say, I would say that. I know there's also the saying about like break things. I actually don't agree with that one, like break things fast or
Hmm.
something like this. I don't
Why
know.
not?
Why not? I think it's just it can create a lot of the chaos. I prefer coming into those companies, I really prefer to kind of build the foundations first. So I would maybe put it in like, 60-40 kind of proportions of like 40% into building some kind of fundamentals and processes, and then 60% experimenting with things. But I would not just, jump from
Hmm.
strategy to strategy without having those foundation first. And you really have to remember, like, very often when I come to those companies, CRM is just a mess. Like,
Hmm.
there is absolutely no processes, neither for marketing nor for sales. Anything related to product or anything on this intersection between product and marketing, it just doesn't exist. Like, no newsletter, no product updates. Like, it's just everybody's kind of doing their own thing and everybody's slammed. Exactly. So very often in those companies, there's just no foundations, right? Like CRM is a complete mess. There's absolutely no processes. Everybody's working in a silo. Things are just burning everywhere. So I think now with my seniority, I also understand what are the foundations that need to be there. And very often the processes in sales and marketing, that's very often the analytics, that's very often making
Yeah.
sure that the tools are not fragmented. So there are
Hmm.
just a couple of things that really need to be there as a base. And I would say to finish off, that's probably 40%. And then 60% is kind of trying things out and moving fast, not
Isn't
breaking.
that scary though? Like you're coming into a company where there's folks already working in the processes that they already have. And now you got to come in and tell them, A, give them the news that, hey, this is not right. And B, you have to go make those changes, which people notoriously don't like changes. Like
Yeah.
is there a certain level of fear kicks in? Is there a certain level of kind of like imposter syndrome kick in? Do you have any of that or you've cracked the code?
I don't, because again, I remember that a lot of those people working at those very early stage startups, like they just don't know any better. So they are actually very happy to adopt some kind of process on some kind of tool that is able to make their work faster and better. So it's barely ever that I come across sort of the resistance, if you will, to like changing something or setting up the processes. Actually, most of the time they feel very grateful that there is somebody who's like taking the reins of this thing and being like, okay, let's make sure this is set up. This is what you have to do. Let's go.
Yeah, that makes sense. You said you bring an engineering mindset into marketing. What does that actually mean in practice? And does it ever clash with creative marketers?
Yeah, so that's more of a kind of recent addition. I did my Python course and I did my JavaScript course, like the introductory courses, mostly because I've been working in tech for the last 9 years, I think, and
Wow.
specifically with like machine learning startups for the last 6 years or so. And I was always feeling so overwhelmed with like trying to understand the terms or trying to, edit articles or write outlines about the things that I
Yeah.
didn't understand, like very, very deeply technical. So I decided to take those courses. And obviously, I also took them because of the LLMs and kind of to be empowered in doing the work that I'm doing right now. So I would say right now, this is very useful, mostly because I am feeling quite comfortable right now dealing with code. And when I say dealing with code, I don't mean I'm going to be sitting there and writing it, but I know how to set things up in like VS Code. And this is something that a lot of marketers will just not do because
Yeah.
for seeing the weird like code things, it's just scary, it's like something familiar and you kind of feel like, okay, this is like for those engineers that's been studying it for like 10 years or whatever.
Yeah.
So right now, this is about, really working with those technical tools. And then before, it was really about thinking in systems and kind of designing systems and always being very data driven. And you ask whether this clashes with creative marketing. I don't think so. I think this just gives you a competitive edge. And for me personally, I am a lot more of sort of analytical slash technical minded person and less so a creative kind of branding person. So yeah, it's just kind of naturally what I'm leaning to.
Yeah. It also gives you a scope of when people are talking, you already know what they're talking about, right? Which really
Probably.
puts you in a good position because now you don't have to first learn what they're saying, but you can also go ahead and ask questions that some people get shot. Oh, okay. I wasn't expecting that. Well, that's good that you know it. It just evens out the playing field, so to speak.
Yeah.
Go ahead, please.
I would add to this, it's also really, I always worked with like very technical people and kind of engineers. So, I mean, that's just kind of naturally where I pivoted. And I am really the kind of the marketer that is focusing on making things work and not necessarily making things pretty. And,
Whoa, really?
yeah, yeah, this is really, I feel like there's a lot of people that are very focused on like making things pretty or making things look good. Like for me,
Yeah.
it can be messy. It has to work. You know what I mean? It just has to work.
Interesting. This is an interesting take because I kind of feel like that a lot of marketers aim for that perfection. It has to look great no matter what. I mean, then we can execute on it later, but it just has to look perfect. That's an
Yeah.
interesting one.
I'll just mention one more thing on this because I think
Sure.
this is also a difference between early stage and kind of later stage where you have the budgets and you can kind of spend, a month
Yeah.
about the rebrand and which words to use on the landing page. And honestly, early stage, it doesn't matter. Like it just doesn't matter. Like however you're gonna call your tool, as long as people understand what they're getting, you're just gonna have to test and keep moving. And honestly, I know plenty of marketers who don't do well at like early stage startups because they are so like brand focused and they want to like focus so much on, defining the ICP and whatnot. It's important. You have to have the base for this. But honestly, A/B testing your landing page when you have 1,000 people coming every month, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. It's not mission critical. It's not moving the needle as forward as you think it is.
Exactly.
Fully understand. On that topic, and I want to use that opportunity, one of the things upon doing a lot of research is you've mentioned you've scaled traffic, organic traffic from 3,500 to 90,000 in about 11 months, so less than a year. Whenever I read such things, it always makes me curious. Was it because of the fact that you did something what people would thought or think is boring and too slow? Or is it something that you figured out a new strategy or distribution channel that others haven't really picked on yet? Is it a combination of both, or is it more about, well, I just did a lot of what really works, but, a slow grind and you just kind of scale it from there?
Yeah. In this particular case, it's honestly the intersection of me being lazy and lucky. lazy because again, I had no idea like how am I supposed to create all of this content. So I found technical writers like students, ML engineering students, and I outsourced a bunch of things for them. I was
Wow.
like, I went to my founder and I was like, I don't know anything about the things that we need to write about.
Yeah.
Keywords, but I have no idea
Mm.
what am I going to be writing about. Can I find a bunch of like really smart people on Medium who might just want to, make some money? So that's the lazy part. I just really outsourced this to technical people. And I think that was also actually very key because we rely so much in marketing on content writers. And very often those people are just not subject matter experts. They are not. They are just writers. And for my specific field, for like computer vision, where I'm working at now, you need to have subject matter experts because you have pieces of code, you have some kind of equations, like you have math there, like in the articles,
Yeah.
That's on the lazy part. And then lucky, it's really the timing, So when I was joining D7 and computer vision, as I said, it was kind of before the whole boom with LLMs. And we just did not have competitors doing much SEO. So for me, that was in a way kind of easy. And we just went with this. We did a couple of things with like cheating the system, which I'm not super proud of, but it worked with,
Do
creating
share.
yeah. Creating the ML glossary where you had very thin content, but just a lot of terms that you were covering very broadly, right, for Google. So obviously there were like tips and tricks. It really worked well because this traffic was actually converting. So 7 for a very long time, they had the inbound pipeline generated, like the majority of the pipeline was inbound from this traffic. So for them, it worked great. It's not always the case.
I want to counter something by saying that you mentioned it was lazy for you to want to go ahead and go to Medium and hire people and tell your CEO that, hey, I don't know, I'm not a subject matter expert. But I would argue that that is actually very smart because a lot of folks, like when people come to me and said, you know a lot about sales. Yeah, but there are things that I don't know about, like email deliverability. It's not my wheelhouse, so to speak. So if this is not it, I just got to go ahead and find people who are better than me to go ahead and do things. I can focus on things that actually move the needle. Do you not think that that is a better approach if a lot of folks, especially in heads of marketing or C-level positions, would just focus on what they're good at and let the other people who are good at their things just outsource those things out? So, it's just a more cohesive environment.
I mean, 100%. And again, I went from managing 12 people at V7 pre-LLM times.
Yeah.
To honestly, having the same output with like me on the team or like me and previously also my content manager on the team and a bunch of contractors. And just really hiring very smart people that are very good in their specific field, RevOps, content, paid ads, whatever. And just really outsourcing it to them. I think the key here, though, because there's also the dark side of it and the trap with, for example, founders hiring agencies to do a lot of this kind of work. So I think the important part is that you still need to understand what they are doing and what great looks like to be able to actually, monitor their work. Because the amount of, or like the number of founders that I spoke to who either worked with me or I connected with other marketers who told me that they spend so much money on agencies, design agencies, PPC agencies, SEO agencies, PR agencies, and they got almost nothing out of this. And that's also because they are not able to kind of understand what those agencies are doing. They're kind of being sold the offer, of the beautiful dream of what that will be. And then they kind of disappointed, right? So I think very important to outsource whom, like to really think about it. And for me, I just have a network of really good contractors across several sort of disciplines in marketing. And I just work with them. It's just hourly based or project based. And those people just get stuff done.
Yeah, I do think that there is a place and time for agencies, but it's not always the case. I mean, it's not something you have to go through. Like, for instance, if you're starting a sales team, you want to just test out an outbound function, might be a good idea to hire an agency that understands your ICP and let them run with it as opposed to hiring the SDR, the BDR, buy the tools, whole shebang. So there is that aspect of that in there. Talking about the revenue and agencies, I do want to ask you something, which is there something that growth marketers constantly obsess over that barely moves the revenue?
Yeah. Oh my God. How much time do you have? No, no, I'm kidding. But so we already talked a little bit about it. I think traffic in general is like vanity metric in a lot of the cases, especially for B2B. And
Yeah.
I'm very happy to be challenged on this. So that's one. And then another one I think is social media and kind of obsessing. It's not about not being present on social media, but it's maybe obsessing about every single post and kind of if it's perfect and spending a lot of time there. Like realistically, whatever you post today is not going to matter tomorrow. People just moved on. That's the world
Mm.
we're living in. So I think these two, something that people put in their sort of marketing goals or strategies, and I only focus on pipeline generated. Like that's what I care about in my marketing strategy. I'm not bullshitting the founders like, hey, let's do this traffic or let's do this social media followers. It's just it doesn't translate, at least not for my companies.
Yeah, it's vanity metrics, like you said, right? At the end of the day, if it's not moving the needle and it start turning into pipeline, that might as well just be like voodoo for all you carry. This already make a lot of sense. This is perfect. So you've worked across PLG and enterprise go-to-market. Is there something that founders misunderstand about trying to combine them both?
I think doing both at the same time has been the most common case I've seen and probably the worst thing you can possibly do.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, wow, we have two people on the marketing team. One person does, PLG, the other one does like, no, I mean, this is terrible. Or I think founders in general, I mean, they're so desperate at the early stage to just make things work and just to get, the traction. There's so much kind of anxiety and, trying to really, really make it. And unfortunately for enterprise marketing, you need time. Unfortunately, this like the sales cycles, and especially for the companies I work with, the sales cycle is not a week. It's like 6 to 9 months. It's a very long sales
That's
cycle.
very, very enterprise.
Very enterprise, yeah, and that's usually what I've been working with. However, I've done PLG for V7, and I think there's a place for it, for sure. And very often PLG is also maybe a little bit over-engineered. So I mean, two cases from Kira and from V7, very often engineers that want to try the product, they don't sign up with the work emails. And especially specifically in the cybersecurity field, so uncommon that they're going to give you work emails. So you just have this stream of like Gmails.
Gmail, Hotmails, Yahoos.
Yeah, exactly. That, I would be normally inclined to ignore, but I'm like, wait a second. When I check them on LinkedIn, this is actually like a CISO or like, VP security and like really, Fortune 500 company. So I think there is a place for both, but I think this is something that needs to be, first of all, you need resources. And secondly, that's something that needs to be sequenced properly. And the common mistake I've seen is like, let's hire developer advocate and a marketer for PLG, and let's hire like marketer and salesperson for enterprise, and then like let's just blast everybody with everything, and it doesn't work. It's to work, not at such early stage.
Yeah. So, something curious you said about the Gmails and Yahoo signups, so essentially non-company emails. A lot of companies just kind of like push them on the side because it's irrelevant for them. Do you think that they should put in a lot more effort in terms of enriching that data and try to figure out, like you said, go to LinkedIn, figure out, of course, if you have thousands of trials, that's a good problem to have. But maybe there is a way that you can go out and enrich it so you actually see who is it that is signing up as opposed to just kind of like willy-nilly just pushing them aside.
100%. And I have the best case for this right now with Lightly's campaigns on LinkedIn. I am getting so many Gmails coming in. Then check them on LinkedIn and I'm like, oh my God, like this is our ICP. And I know those people are our ICPs because the targeting on LinkedIn is such that you target by the job title. So I know the people coming are not randoms, right?
Yeah.
So I am really honestly kind of counting also on Claude and maybe having some kind of tool that is able to scrape LinkedIn and enrich this, because obviously doing this manually is not really, working.
It's not scalable.
it's totally not scalable. Yeah, but totally, like, I think for those fields that are very technical, where the ICP or the persona is like a little bit maybe secretive, or cybersecurity, I mean, there's no chance they're gonna give you their work email. And actually, it's not bad that they give you their Gmail, because it's almost sure that they're going to receive this email because they gave you their personal
Yeah.
email. So, you know,
Like I'm of the opinion, does it really matter it's Gmail or I am and like whatever.com? Because as long as it gets into their inbox, so what is the percentage of like the chance that they're gonna go ahead and view it and reply? It's pretty similar, right? Because what's gonna come to me personal email, I have the like same likelihood I will respond to a cold email on my work email. It's not like it's gonna change the perception or percentage by any stretch, but
100%.
alas, I digress. It's something interesting you said, and I wrote it down. It's really interesting for me was the pipeline generated. Like, it doesn't really matter what you're looking at. At the end of the day, what was the dollar amount that was generated in pipeline and closed, which I really like coming in from the marketing lens. When you look at a marketing dashboard, is there a specific metric that tells you instantly whether the team actually understands growth?
Honestly, qualified meetings. That's it. That's all I care about. I don't really care how many leads I'm bringing. I only care about, okay, are we able to get qualified meetings with those people? And then deals. I mean, really nothing before and nothing after. I just focus on meetings and then the pipeline generated.
Is deals or opportunities or deals, whatever, be generated as sales metric or more of a share between sales and marketing?
Yeah, so it really for me went kind of depending on the company, and obviously there is always marketing source and the sales source. So I do have
Sure.
my goals on the marketing side, and I think especially for the early stage that is getting some kind of traction. I mean, I'm mostly hired, and the main thing that founders tell me is like, we want inbound, because that's kind of what they want. Everybody wants
Yeah.
coming to them, like nobody to be sending 10,000 cold emails.
Cold emails and cold calls.
So it's literally for me every time the main, like the North Star, and I'm hearing is like, we need to build an inbound motion.
Mm.
Okay, building inbound motion. So yeah, I think we do distinguish between the inbound sourced and sort of outbound sourced.
Mm.
And my goals are usually around the inbound sourced, and then obviously then the feedback loop with the quality of the inbound and the outbound is just something that we discuss and kind of iterate on, so that I also know whether I'm bringing the right people. Because I think, yeah, you know this from experience as well, the marketing and sales handovers and the loops, it's the old tale.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is why it was something interesting you said in the very beginning is that when you go into the companies and they're operating in silos, that's probably the worst way to operate because sales and marketing need to be like this, right? Working hand in hand. Because if they're not aligned, a lot of what you're delivering might not actually end up getting closed. So while the numbers they're not going to be, it's not about inflated, it might actually be under inflated because of the fact that there is no alignment. So that's key is that, hey, we're both in the same team or we're working towards the same target. So we got to work together. So I think that is extremely critical before anything or any process is put in place
Yeah.
for the most part. I want to talk about that because this question is tied more to sales and marketing together. When you're targeting a 6-7 figure account, what's more important? Messaging precision, which I know a lot of people spend time like that email has to be perfect. This message has to go out a certain way, or there has to be internal sales alignment for the most part for it to work. Or is it both?
Or is the third thing, which is
You share?
no, which is like providing the value. I think that's obviously this ties both the alignment and sort of the precision in your messaging, but it's really understanding their pain points and really being able to provide the value and really being able to nurture them again as sort of I mean, it's not really anything revealing, but it's
Yeah.
really something that I realized it's really a mindset shift. I think a lot of the sales folks, and again, I love my salespeople, and this is something we're
Some
really
of them.
some of them, it's really something we've been working on quite a lot, is like realistically thinking that people just want to get on the call with you without knowing you and without kind of like having this relationship build or having this kind of trust, like, hey, this person really is providing value or being helpful.
Yes.
I mean, the chances are quite low, right? So yeah, I think the most important is really nurturing those people with value, especially in those enterprise sort of deals, and really, making sure the relationship is there. And yeah, just kind of under promising and over delivering. I think being able to provide insight as well. I'm not a salesperson, but I did read the Challenger Sale, and I think that's the name of the book. And I really like this.
Sales playbook. Yeah.
Yeah, I really like this kind of idea of, really teaching them something, or kind of giving them the insight even more, or challenging them a little bit, even more so than just building the relationship. And I think that's where salespeople, like personally, I think that's where salespeople should be really heading towards, like being this kind of, not really consultant, but like this person that is really kind of teaching them something, or maybe showing them something they were not really aware of before, and then only then kind of selling.
Yeah. What does good MQL look like in enterprise AI, and how often are marketing teams lying to themselves about lead quality?
Oh, yeah, tough one. So in general, I know there's been a lot of noise on LinkedIn about MQLs,
Oh
and
my God. Yeah.
cancel them and don't look at them anymore. And just, I mean, yeah, the whole term is so loaded. It's crazy. And I do agree that in most cases, you probably shouldn't be thinking about MQLs as sort of individuals, but take the whole account into consideration.
Like the company, that is?
Yeah, the company, right? And then context within those company, and kind of checking the whole sort of accounts health, right? Like the score, or sort of the score. Realistically, it's quite difficult. I mean, you need, especially for the early stage, we don't have money for fancy tools like Dream Data to like be checking, the account health, and checking the touch points, and how many contacts within every account, and what good is really what good really looks like. So I think it's difficult to like say what good MQL looks like, because it's just going to be different for everybody, and kind of depending on the quarter, and depending on the campaigns in general. For example, for Lightly, we are industry agnostic, right? So during the year, we might target engineers from agriculture, and then manufacturing, and then safety and security, and then defense sector. And for me to say that, okay, this is our definition or criteria for MQL across all of those industries is just not realistic, because those people are doing completely different things in those industries, even if their job title is exactly the same. The problems they're solving are different, right? So in this sense, I think that's a little bit difficult. And you ask how we're lying to ourselves about it. I think just having this one definition is a little bit, or maybe holding on to this definition, or to this like MQL number, or the goal, is kind of lying to ourselves. Again, I come back to pipeline generated is the North Star. I don't care if they are the MQL or not MQL. Like, do they have the use case? Are they willing to buy? Like, do they have the money? That's what I focus on.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Brass tacks. All right. Like, interestingly enough, I think like every single time somebody tries to put on a number that looks a little bit dubious, I'm like, right, how much did you close? I don't want to know about demos done. Just talk to me about what exactly is it that you closed in terms of ACB and whatever, right? Like that, get to the crux of the point. It's just a lot easier. It cuts through a lot of the noise for the most part. I want to talk about something you mentioned, Python, earlier. How technical does a modern B2B marketer needs to be? Is knowing Python overkill, or you said it's competitive edge? Does everybody need to know it? Does it help? Should they be focusing more on that, or is it more about let's just be technical enough to understand technical things, not be very, very technical?
Yeah, I would say it's more about being curious enough to wanting to understand, and maybe not feeling overwhelmed where you do see a piece of code, or where you do have to like open, VS Code and talk to
Terminal.
code, and have it like, create your Python file for like, Cloud skills or whatever. I'm very lucky. My flatmate is an engineer. So every time I need to debug something, we're just vibe coding, day in, day out recently. And it's very useful to have someone who's like having this kind of skill. So shortly, no, it's not a requirement. I do think what it helped me with, though, is to not feel overwhelmed, and to be curious about it, and not be scared. I think marketers or non-technical people like to call themselves non-technical. And for them, that means, okay, so I'm not touching anything that's like Google Tag Manager setup, or I'm not touching anything that's like a Cloud skill because there is a Python file, or I'm not doing this automation in Zapier because it's, technical. But like realistically, you can figure it out. Now with LLMs, you can figure out so much on your own.
Yeah.
And not to
Yeah.
use it, I think, is what going to really separate the people that will stay behind.
100%. I think like utilizing these tools, they have evened out the level out the playing field so much. Not utilizing it's criminal for the most part. I want to talk about something interesting. So you've built teams, and there was an interesting stat I read about you, which is you kept the ENPS score under above 50, and manager score of about 95%. How do you build high performance teams without burning people out, considering that these are roles where numbers do a lot of the talking and it's a pressure cooker environment? How do you do that? What's the secret?
One word, I think, clarity. I think clarity is the key to literally everything. I think people burn out because there is no clarity. I think there is missed expectations or misunderstood expectations when there is no clarity. And most importantly, there is no accountability when there is no clarity. And when I say clarity, I literally just mean being very clear. What are we doing? Why are we doing? How are we doing it? And do we all understand each other in all those three things?
Yeah.
And I think this sounds cheesy and it sounds simple because, but actually in those early stage startups, like everything seems a priority, everything is burning, and having this clarity
Yeah.
is actually one of the hardest thing to get to. Is like, you're in the meeting and then somebody's like, oh, but what about this thing? Oh, and then also this thing, and then also this thing. And if you don't have somebody in the room who's able to kind of like cut it short and be like, okay, this is why we're here. This is the focus. This is what we are doing. It just, I feel like then everybody's kind of leaving exhausted. People don't know. People feel demotivated. And it need to come from the top. This is my work right now with founders. Having done this couple of times already, is really getting to clarity and really asking kind of challenging questions and sitting down with founders and being like, guys, I know you want to do everything and it's very exciting and you're first time founders and things are, taking off, but it's not my first rodeo. And we really need to be very clear on what we're doing.
Yeah.
And the one exercise, and this is something I also introduced recently for Lightly at the retreat, is like, we have the to-do list, but we also have the not to-do list. And we need to have what are we not going to do very clear, because otherwise we're just going to end up doing everything,
That's a really interesting thing. There's a to-do list and there's a not to-do list.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people focus more on that. On the topic of, you work with a lot of founders, what kind of founders do you enjoy working with the most? Is there a particular character trait or a trait that you like? Damn, my people, I like them.
Technical founders, 100%. I think I really like working with technical founders because, again, there is a different way that they think. They are a lot more structured in their thinking. They think a lot about edge cases, which is very important. I think a lot of founders with kind of the business background is, all about, let's just follow the money. Like, we're going to figure it out, This is the typical case of like promising something to a customer and not understanding the actual resources or the actual kind of work that needs to put into delivering the thing that you promise is going to be ready in like 2 months, right? So I think, for me personally, I love working with technical founders because I think there is like a good, I love the word synergy, but really I feel like we kind of complement each other quite well. And I think this is also how I choose my startups. Like, I work usually in deep tech. It's been a while since I worked with like e-commerce or, some kind of MarTech companies. I usually do machine learning, very technical products. Quite often the products that don't even have the UI. So the product is basically, you sell a piece of code. And that's what I enjoy the most.
Yeah. Interesting. Is there a growth tactic that worked really well in the early 2020s, 2021, but is dead today and people are still pretending like it works?
I'm not sure. I think maybe programmatic SEO. I have not really been following what's happening with like programmatic SEO. And I know there's been obviously the switch towards GEO or AI SEO, whatever you want to name
Which
it.
one is it? Is it GEO
Yeah.
or is it EO? What is it?
I just say be visible in AI. Like that's kind of the way, put it under one umbrella, you know?
Yeah.
So I think, I think probably programmatic SEO has been something that people really jumped on. And then I think there's been a lot of cleanup that a lot of people had to do because, you know, Google penalized them for producing content in bulk that's very thin and not very useful and kind of just making the internet a worse place, which is terrible.
Well, Google is leading from the front on that front. So you've worked across Poland, Denmark, London, Zurich. How much of your career acceleration came from cultural adaptability versus just pure scale? Is there a way to be able to kind of like dial that down or look at it at a percentage scale?
Yes, I also spent a lot of time in Colombia, actually.
Oh, right on. Yes, once we spoke, you were actually I think you were
Yeah,
in Colombia.
I was visiting, yeah, but I was in Colombia for 4 years, so actually quite a
Oh,
long
right.
time, and obviously a much different culture. Um, I don't think there is that much that kind of differed. Maybe one thing that I really love about Zurich and being in this very sort of deep tech AI hub is the fact that you just by default surrounded by very smart people and very ambitious people. And I think you're able to bounce ideas with people basically. And there's a lot of meetups and there is a lot of things happening in tech, which is something that I was really missing in Colombia. For my work, I think there isn't really that much difference. I mean, for me, it's anyway opening my laptop and just getting my stuff done. I don't think there was that much.
There's
Yeah,
no change, right? So to speak. I mean, it's like, but nowadays our work is like, you can be next to a beach in Katmai, like, I don't know, in Thailand,
exactly.
whatever. It's not really going to make much of a difference. Although I do like my workstation. I'm not going to lie, but I
Yeah.
do see that. I do have one more question for you before we head into our rapid fire round cast. Is there an emotional pattern you see most often in founders at Series A, at seed level, that you don't see up at a higher level? Is there something there, or is it just more about, founders being founders at different stages?
So I don't know if this is an emotional pattern, but I definitely see a pattern in the founders that I work with, and that is a very dangerous one, unfortunately, and that is focusing more on like satisfying the VCs and kind of making things look good for VCs and not obsessing enough about their customers or the problems that they are solving. That's one, and in line with this, it's also focusing way too much on the competitors and not focusing enough on customers or prospects or potential customers that they have. So I think it's really something that's repeatable. Like
Mm.
in every single startup, they're like, hey, we have this big competitor and we really want to take over, or we want to be the market leader or whatnot. But it's really not so much about taking over the competitor. Like, why would you invest so much energy into looking what your competitor is doing? You might as well invest this time into looking at the problems that your customers have and really trying to solve them, right?
Yeah. Put actually effort in where there could be a lot more movement, so to speak. This is super valuable. Cass, I want to go into rapid fire rounds, very quick questions, very quick answers. Best advice you've ever received, business or personal?
Okay. The best one was that it was actually feedback, is that I need to look more broadly and not to just stay narrow in my field, which at that point was kind of outreach, like the backlinks. Yeah.
Pretty interesting. Advice you ignored or wish you had listened to?
Oh, Lord. So maybe the one that I would ignore, and I've always ignored, is to take the shares and work for the under market salary. Is this how you call it? Under market salary?
Just be
Uh,
underpaid, yeah.
yeah, to be underpaid basically and take the shares. No, I don't agree with this. Take both. I mean, take both. Why is it A or B? No, choose the place where you can take both.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think like this is a good litmus test, is that how you do something is how you do everything. And if there are enough companies that are willing to lowball you in the beginning, the chances of them lowballing you later on is going to be a lot higher too. So choose wisely for the
100%.
most part. So yeah, it's not one or the other, sub-binary. It can be both at the same time. What would you tell your younger self, say 7 to 10 years ago?
Learn to code.
I gotta go to Khan Academy and start coding myself.
Yeah, yeah, learn to code. I think that would be it.
Yeah, I think it's a skill. Definitely helps quite a lot just in technical thinking and bringing that process thinking way into just about any role. One ongoing challenge in your current work that keeps you up at night.
Keeping CRM organized and up to date because, and I will just give quick context here, not because of my OCD, but because now that we're able to connect LLMs, like, building cloud skills for CRM, really this rule around garbage in and garbage out is, it's really very, very true. And I
Sure.
realized it's really about the data quality, and that now that we can connect those tools with the marketing or sales tools, this really translates into, okay, do we have good data in those tools? Because otherwise I'm unable to use whatever I'm building with cloud skills for like data analysis because the data is just shit.
Yeah, 100%. Your favorite restaurant? I know that you're in Zurich, so if you want to use Zurich, you could use Zurich, or you could use our Poland as an example for what your favorite restaurant here is.
Oh Lord. I actually really like Uki Uki, the vegan one.
My daughter is a huge fan. I swear to God, every week we go to Uki Uki, and I'm sick and tired of eating Uki Uki. But the problem is they always have a queue, and I have a rule never to queue for food. She made us queue at minus 14 Celsius outside for 30 minutes. I was like, I swear to God, this child. I mean, it was her birthday. But
we have the same rule. I also never queue for food. We have some kebab here in Zurich. I never tried because there's always a queue. And I'm like, why would people queue for food? And then why would people queue for a kebab? I mean, this is just, you know what I mean? Yeah. So I feel
Yes.
it's, yeah.
if not for my kid, I would never. And they have 2 places down in Warsaw, but still, it's just so like, it is what it is. It's good food either way. A tool that you swear by, cannot live without.
Ooh, personal or
It can be
work?
anything, just general one that you like.
Right now, Claude.
Yes.
100%. I do everything in Claude. My personal, my work life, it's all in Claude. It's scary. I get really dependent right now on Claude.
Yeah. Well, I mean, LLMs are the way to go. So naturally, it is something that a lot of people are paying more attention to. Cass, it's been great. Where can listeners find you?
So I think the best way to connect is via LinkedIn. I usually answer messages unless you're trying to sell me something, then I really do not answer. And I also send you a funny meme. So if you want to try to sell me something, you're going to get a meme back. Yeah, just connect with me on LinkedIn.
Absolutely. And any upcoming project, launch, talk, or event that you're excited about?
I am going to Sastanak in Croatia in May because there's going to be quite a nice lineup. Emilia Korczynska, which I mentioned before, and I think a bunch of really cool people. And then my own project, I'm launching my own project, which has nothing to do with tech and everything to do with my parallel career, which is in psychotherapy.
Oh, right on. Well, yeah. I'm sure this is something that's going to be helpful. I'll plug it if you want me to.
I'm sure all those people traumatized with startups,
The plan is huge. Well, guys, this has been wonderful. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much for taking the time. Really enjoyed it. By the way, I do want to thank your friend Agata for the shout out for me having to talk to you, and it's been great because I learned a lot from her. Definitely learn a lot from you too. So it's been great. So I appreciate you coming on. Folks, if you got value out of this, share with someone who needs to hear it. I'll see you next week. Thank you, guys. See you.
Thank you.